Hello folks, and welcome to the Sunday stream for March 16th. Hey, I guess happy Ides of March and happy St. Patrick's Day if you're in the US and if you're not. So, how are things going? You having a good time? My accomplishment for this weekend? I did all the laundry. Hope you did something big too. It's not all I did. I did a couple other things as well, but sometimes it feels like really magical to like get everything done. Feels pretty good to me. I'm also working on cleaning my house out and working on minimizing some of the stuff that I have so that it's tidier and neater. It's easy to accumulate stuff that you end up not needing or not wanting, or you just hold on to stuff. This is a real problem that I have. I hold on to stuff that I ought to let go of. At some point in time, you know, things are not always, you've used it. Like, I'm not going to show you, but the pair of pants that I have on right now, I kind of have a uniform. It's kind of like a t-shirt and these black cotton yoga pants. I had at one point in time about 14 or 15 pairs of these black cotton yoga pants. I've been wearing them for a very long time, almost as long as I've been into hypnosis. They're super comfortable. They don't make them anymore. But the pair that I'm wearing right now actually has a hole in the thigh. And that's not awesome, is it? It's really just not awesome that I have this pair of pants that's got a hole in them. But I wear these for everything. So they have, I have some that have paint on them. I have some that for some reason, like, the cotton got eaten away. So there was just this network of the spandex that was left over on parts of it. And now I just kept wearing them because I don't really care. Mostly I wear them to work at the warehouse and nobody sees me there. I work alone and the warehouse is not a fancy place and no one at the post office or UPS cares what I look like. So I wear these things and I wear them out. I don't want to get rid of these pants because they serve a function. They're in relatively good condition. Anyway, but I'm getting rid of things that like I really no longer wear. It's hard. I have some stuff that's sentimental that I have never worn. Like I have a suit with a jacket and a skirt and I think a shirt. It belonged to my grandmother who is long dead, and I will probably never wear it, but a part of me has a real hard time letting go of that. And I have other things that remind me of her, but that also reminds me of her, and it's like, oh, well, I don't know if I can let that go. So what are things that you find yourself wanting to let go of? Anything at all? Like, can you do it? Is it super hard? I have let go of a lot of stuff, and I do have a big pile of things out there. I'm also, again, not going to show you. I have a big pile of things that I'm going to be bringing to the thrift store hopefully this week. So I have a game that I no longer play. I have a pair of shoes that don't fit me. Pair of shoes that doesn't fit me, that's right. And some other things that I was just going through stuff and I'm like, I don't really use this. I have changed how I do things. I've changed my systems, which I think is a really fascinating thing for us to talk about. Just in general, but I think we could use it hypnotically as well. So for example, when I moved into this house, one of the first things that I did was to get a 3-bin wheeled laundry basket. So it has 3 fabric things that have handles you can lift out, and they sit next to each other. So I have one for whites, one for blacks, one for color laundry, and that's where laundry goes. So there's no dirty laundry around the house because that's where it belongs, right? It's got a space and then when that gets full, I just take the whole thing, and that's enough to do laundry. Like the whole, when that flexible basket is filled, one of them, it's a perfect load of laundry. It's like magic. It's like they thought about it or something. So that type of system really makes my life easier and better, and I love it. So I'm trying to find other ways that I can additionally make my life better and easier. One way that I did it was my closet. One morning at 4 a.m., it was built with particle board, and the whole thing just came crashing down. So I happened to have a guy who builds closets as a neighbor by my warehouse, and he came in and he built me a new closet, and it's perfect. Like, I don't need a lot of space. Again, I wear t-shirts and yoga pants most days, so it's just enough space to hold my stuff. If it doesn't fit in there, for the most part, I probably don't need it, except for winter stuff. I do still have a box of like winter clothes that you don't really need in Florida, but I do travel, so I have to have additional winter storage space somewhere else. Anyway, yeah. Hello from Germany. Hello, Lycan. Hello, Yip. Very nice to see you all here. So, yeah, it can definitely be hard to let things go. Oh, not to get super personal. When we first moved in here, and I am going through boxes of stuff that I did not have time to go through before I came here. So I'd be sitting on the sofa, and I'd be going through like papers that were old. And I'd be going through them, and it was like a slap in the face, some of them. They were like, here's every stupid decision you've ever made, and you held on to all of the details and the receipts for them. Did you ever have that experience? Sometimes it got so painful, like, that I would have to stop. I would be like, okay, I've done a half an hour of shredding. I went through everything just to make sure, like, stuff I needed to save, stuff I definitely didn't need to save. I was shredding it and getting rid of it. And I had wished I had done it years ago, but a lot of that stuff had been in storage, which is another trap that I think people should talk about. But at least in the U.S., like, storage is this ubiquitous. Fortunately, I did not have to pay for my storage, at least not monetarily. But I had a lot of stuff, and you only have room for so much stuff. And then what do you do with it? You buy, or if you're fortunate enough, you put stuff in a space where you don't actually see it. And then at some point in time, you have to go through it, or somebody's going to have to go through it. And if you don't go through it and get rid of the crap, right? Like, and separate out the wheat from the chaff, essentially. Separate out the gold from the crap. Somebody else is going to do it, and they're not going to know. You'll know what's valuable for you. Nobody else will have that same ability. Sometimes I think we still have that sort of thing in our head, too. And there's stuff that we get stuck with, and we push it all away somewhere. And repression is really, generally speaking, bad for your brain, because if you repress things enough, at some point in time, like, you build up a lot of pressure in those things, and then they just all start to come out. They either force their way out in like one big explosion, or they just like start to sneak out, right? Like little tendrils of things come out, and then all of a sudden you like say something you did not expect, or you feel something you did not realize you're going to feel when you're doing something that you thought was rather mundane. So, well, Deidre, I am glad you're here catching me live. If you have anything you would like me to talk about or to express. So today I'm going to talk about compulsions. And I want to talk about this because one of the biggest misconceptions in hypnosis, or maybe two of the biggest misconceptions in hypnosis, is that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and you can't be made to do anything that you don't want to do. I don't think those things are true. And I often feel that if you go to see a professional hypnotist because you have a thing that you have been working through that you couldn't make yourself do, that somebody else can often have the right frame, the right twist, the right words, the right something that allows your brain to finally go, okay, we're going to do this thing from now on. And I think that sometimes when we think about, say, a compulsion or being forced to do something, so one of the most common and popular things that I recall ever having been asked to do is people want to be forced to be bi or forced to have a bisexual encounter, right? Often men, not exclusively. And like, why do you want to do that? Like, there's a part of you that really wants to do this thing, right? But you just haven't been able to make yourself do it, but somebody else could make you do it, maybe? So anyway, that's just on the sexual / kinky side. That is probably one of the most common things that people want to be forced into doing. They want to be compelled to have a sexual experience with somebody of their same sex and not feel guilty about it. I think the guilt, though, honestly, is the fun part of it. Like, the shame and the guilt often make us do things. Often, you know, I feel like that gets people into a lot of trouble sometimes, having guilt and shame about things. And we are a nation built on repressing things. Gotta get that Puritan ethos into us real hard. My family has been in the U.S. for a really long time. So, like, I'm happy to take some blame for being an asshole for hundreds and hundreds of years. But really, you just have to be able to say, sometimes you have to get over these things. Sometimes you have to say, you know, it's not really good to be puritanical about things. It's not really good to repress yourself. It's good to go through those things and say, so this happened, and maybe you feel a little sad about it, and maybe you cry about it, and maybe you're like, wow, I was really stupid in this moment, or those moments, or why did I make those decisions over and over again, like I have done while going through papers, for example. And some of those going through papers decisions were also about relationships that I had in the past. So it's not just like this is a piece of paper that I'm looking at. You know, they bring up a lot of experiences and emotions and things that you have done or gone through in your life. So the idea that we can find a way to, say, unrepress ourselves by being compelled to do a thing, I think is absolutely fascinating. And I think the idea that there's probably something in your head right now that you like the idea of being forced into doing it. You like the idea of being compelled to do a thing. You like the idea that this thing is something that is so strong and so overwhelming. The thought, the idea, the desire, and yet you have been repressing it so hard. You have been denying yourself this thing so hard. Caveat. Sometimes the fantasy of a thing is way hotter than the actual reality. And why is that? Because I think, so the reality of something doesn't always, the fantasy of something doesn't always take into account the way all of our senses actually work, right? So the senses that we ignore, say, when we're reading a story. So if we're reading a story, we're probably not thinking necessarily about how somebody smells or exactly how they taste. And those things can be fairly off-putting for some people. Like, if somebody doesn't smell right for you, that might be a way for your brain to be like, oh, you know what? Actually, this fantasy isn't as hot as I thought it was going to be. Or somebody doesn't touch you in quite the right way, and your brain is like, I had imagined it a little bit differently than this. Or I thought I would feel something different than I did. Or, you know what? When they actually shoved me up against the wall because I thought I liked rough sex, it actually, they didn't protect my head, and that hurt. So like sometimes when we think about the fantasy of something and then we go out and try to live that fantasy in some way, our senses get involved, and our senses are not happy because we've not accounted for all the little ins and outs that might possibly get in the way. There's a thank you very much. There's a little book for me to read. So, yes, that is a super dragon. That is a super common, trope. Yeah. Well, I don't, I have never been diagnosed with anything except a thyroid disorder, as far as I know. But in terms of what my particular other things might be, I can't even tell you. I don't know. And at my age, it's like, I don't know if I want to go down that route. I don't know if it would be helpful or not. I'm just trying to live the best life I can, and I think a part of me might be a little put off, frightened by the idea of having somebody else like examine my head and telling me what's going on there. So we're going to talk, and we're going to do a session today on compulsion and on being forced to do a thing. But you're going to pick the thing that you find yourself wanting to do, and we're going to see, as a general group experiment, if there is something that you think you might want to be forced to do, because that might be the only way that you could possibly manage to get to do it. That could be eating your vegetables. That could be exercising. But I wanted to talk about the difference between the fantasy and the reality of something, because I'm a big fan of making sure that your senses are all involved in a way that makes you feel overall, like every sense has a overall well-being sense. I don't know if any of you watch Severance, but it's this TV show where this group of employees looks at numbers, and they're literally just looking at numbers, and they're like, well, when you see the numbers, these numbers are going to give you a bad vibe, essentially. So the idea that you can visually get a bad vibe out of looking at something, that's the sense that I don't want you to get from any of the things that you might find yourself experiencing. So all of your senses should be able to feel really good about the thing you find yourself being compelled to do on some level. So I'm going to talk about a lot of the way you can find that your senses feel really comfortable about that. And I don't know if I'm going to talk about the way that your brain is going to make that happen, because everyone's brain is a little different. And I'm not sure that I have time to figure out that for each and every one of you. However, I'm going to encourage your unconscious minds to get to that point where your brain is like, you know what? I do know what makes me feel comfortable when I hear something, or when I see something, when I smell something, when I taste something. I know what I do like. I know what I don't like. I know what would make an experience make me feel comfortable and calm on the inside. I know the types of sensations on my skin or my body that I enjoy, or maybe you don't, but that you can allow yourself to learn those really quickly and not have a problem with those things. So in about 5 minutes, we're going to start doing the session, and then we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about a lot of the ways in which your brain can feel that desire, that compulsion to do that thing. So right now, you've got 4 or 5 minutes to think about the thing you would like to find yourself being compelled to make happen from now on. Now, when I say from now on, you can absolutely pick the time frame that you would like to make this happen. If you're going to find yourself, say, being at home and you just want to be compelled to get a thing done, you don't have to worry about having to be compelled for a long period of time. And I'm certainly not advocating that you find yourself compelled beyond getting this thing done. However, if you decide that you want to do something with a long-term effect for you, like, say, exercising or eating or not eating things that, you really shouldn't be doing in some way that you know for you isn't all that healthy. For example, if you have a medication that you're on that has a contraindication of alcohol or grapefruit, and you love those things, and you often want to drink, like a grapefruit tonic with vodka or something, and you're like, well, that interferes with my medication in all sorts of ways. Like, just, try not to pick something like that, but allow your brain to know that if you're going to be doing something that is going to be a long-term effect, that you can find yourself doing it until it becomes a natural thing for you. And the more your brain finds that, Deidre, that does happen. I'm just telling you that there's going to be an ad coming up at probably about 24 minutes after the hour. This is why I wait. So if you sense that, you can stay in trance. By all means, feel free to stay in trance. I'm aware that happens when I talk sometimes. So, but the way that your brain can find itself responding to a thing, I will do everything in my power to allow your brain to know that it is totally fine to pick a short-term thing or a long-term thing, and that once that thing is done, or once that thing has become a habit for you, a good habit, you can find yourself noticing that you don't need the compulsion. You can let go of the compulsion at that point in time. And it can just be really powerful for you to be able to choose the thing you'd like to do. So if you're like, oh gosh, you know what, I'm going to listen to this live session, I'm going to pick something really short-term, and hey, if it works for me, then maybe I go back and I listen to the recording and I pick something else. And then when I pick something else, I pick something that is a little bit different. Like maybe I pick something that's going to help me accomplish something. Let me turn off my volume on my phone. Not up, down. I'm going to pick something that is less challenging, in terms of, doesn't have to be a life change, but it's going to be something that I'm going to find myself wanting to do, but it's been a little harder, and I might need a couple more days to make that happen. So let your unconscious mind think about how good it is. Yeah, sideways things are absolutely fine. You said side quests, and I said sideways, but, I think that the idea... I will say that one of my partners likes to play games, and so a new game has come out. They completely abandoned the previous new game they were playing, and they've gone back to this new version of this old game they've been playing. And then they're like, oh, you know what? I realized I had never completely finished the earlier version of this game. They have been trying to go back and complete some of those quests on that one. Not even, I don't even think they're side quests. I think they're like pretty main things, and they just got frustrated and they're like, that's it, and they moved on to something else. Anyway, all right, so hopefully ads are about over, or soon will be over. And here we go. So some of you might already be in trance. Congratulations if you are. Today's topic is compulsions, and it feels really amazing for your brain to think about the idea of being compelled hypnotically to make something happen. I'd like you to think about the idea that all hypnosis is in fact not self-hypnosis, and that I'm going to force you to do something that deep down, secretly, you've wanted to do all along. And that the more you find yourself thinking about whatever that thing is, something tiny, something bigger, your unconscious mind just feels this urge. As you listen to the sound of my voice, as you find yourself surrendering to that sensation that allows you to know that you're in a slightly altered state, that might to you indicate you're in trance, that might to you indicate that your unconscious mind is ready to hear the things that I'm saying and to act on them, is ready to take these suggestions and to make them your reality. Allow your unconscious mind to think about how good it feels as I tell you these things, and for your brain to go, yeah, it would be really great right now to just do as Lee says. Why not? I'm in control, obviously, right? I'm the one thinking about the thing I want to make happen. So it must be all me. It has nothing to do with Lee, even if she's the one talking right now, because I'm the one thinking right now. And if I'm the one thinking right now, then I must somehow still be in control of what's going on in my brain. So I'm talking to your unconscious self right now. And I'd like your unconscious self to realize that that is fine. If that's how you think, that's fine. I'm just going to ask you to find yourself agreeing with me. I'm just going to ask you to find yourself giving in to how good it feels to agree with me as you slide and sink and surrender more and more to the things that I'm saying, to that feeling that can come over you as you find yourself thinking about trance and thinking about hypnosis and feeling how fascinating it can be to be in that fuzzy state. That state maybe that you get to when you hear the things that I say and you find yourself going inside and imagining what the difference could be. So allow your unconscious mind, as you pay attention, as you find yourself thinking and saying yes to the things that I recommend and suggest, that your unconscious mind really would like to make some changes, that your unconscious mind just needs like a brief push, just a gentle nudge to make these things happen. And it doesn't have to be a compulsion, right? It doesn't need to be a compulsion. But if Lee wants to call it a compulsion, that's fine. You'll go along with it, right? So I'd like you to think about what that means to need something so strongly, to desire something so strongly, to feel as though you are being pushed and pulled at the same time. You are being pushed toward something while that something is pulling you toward it at the same time so strongly, as though it is completely inevitable that the thing you find yourself thinking about wanting to do becomes inevitable for you, and that every single part of you becomes involved in making this happen. Every single part of you that needs to participate in this, all of a sudden it's like they just all woken up and gone, well, the heck with everything else. We are moving forward toward this goal. And then you've got like a strong wind at your back, just pushing you in that direction. And the thing itself feels like it has somehow become the opposite pole magnet to you and your intentions and your body, and you, all those things are simply conspiring to pull you to the direction of that goal. And then you're like, but Lee, you can, pull a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But the water is so good. It is like sparkling in the sun, and you might dip your hand in. It's like the perfect temperature for you to like drink it. And, if you were to like lick the water off your fingers, you would be like, oh my God, that's the best water I have ever had in my life. And the temperature is just right. And I know that if I were to take a sip of that and to have it like slide down my mouth and my throat and my esophagus and in my stomach, I could feel that perfectly correct temperature of water go down, and it would be divine. And then somehow you also find yourself feeling like you're a little dehydrated, like you could use something and that's the only thing liquid around, and you might need to hydrate, and there's a clean cup right there. You could also just dunk your head right in the trough, I guess. The trough also looks clean. And every single part of you begins to think, it smells clean, it looks clean. If you wanted to, there's a magical testing facility right next door, and they would test that water to make sure it was pure and free from whatever you couldn't have. It was exactly the way it ought to be. And you might notice that the more you find yourself thinking about it, the more you wanted it. And maybe your mouth starts to water a little bit at the idea that you are so thirsty. Maybe that act of getting to that place of the water allowed you to find yourself thinking about the fact that you just got a little hot and sweaty, right? You got a little hot and sweaty, and the water's the perfect temperature maybe to cool you down. Or maybe it's, maybe you're like my mother and you like a hot cup of, or a warm cup of water instead of tea or coffee in the morning. Maybe you just want a little piece of lemon in it. Maybe there's a tray of like lemons on the side. Whatever it is that the thing you find yourself wanting to do requires, your unconscious mind can fill that in absolutely, completely, powerfully. So that every single one of your senses is engaged and excited about this. You know what the sound of water is like when you find yourself maybe hearing like a waterfall or hearing the water come out of the tap? You hear that sound of running water and you're like, oh, especially if you're like exhausted or really thirsty and your mouth's a little dry and your lips are getting a little cracked and you're like, I ran out of my canteen 45 minutes ago and I've been hiking through the woods and I really need something to refresh my body. Maybe you got a little dirty because you've been like, going through the woods again and you're like, I got like tree sap and dirt on my hands. I picked up a rock. I got some moss there too. I'd really like to clean up. However it is that you find yourself wanting that thing that you found yourself wanting to be compelled to do, your unconscious mind can simply begin to feel every single sense you have beginning to crave wanting you to do that action. I don't know how you're going to do it. And I say this with all love and sincerity because your unconscious mind is a special part of you. It does the things that it thinks are best for you. But this is a thing that you've wanted to do for a while, right? And it doesn't matter if it's just getting all your laundry done. It doesn't matter if it's just throwing something away. It doesn't matter if it's just writing an email. Your brain knows that there's this thing that you find yourself putting off that you need to do, that you're going to make happen. And your unconscious mind says, okay, we picked this thing. We need to get on it. And then your unconscious mind needs to go, okay, well, we have forced ourselves to this thing. No, we didn't force ourselves. We found ourselves pulled towards this thing and pushed towards this thing and magically really interested in the outcome of making this thing happen. What is the outcome that you find yourself wanting out of this thing? First of all, the thing is done, right? Isn't something being finished an amazing outcome in and of itself? And allow your unconscious mind to think about how good it feels to accomplish something, to finish something, to tie a bow around it, and to be done with it. Maybe, though, this is the start of something. Maybe you find yourself going, oh, it'd be really great if I could just send this letter off because then I have an opening and then I can start to have a dialogue with somebody about these other things. However you find yourself doing it, that first step is so important, right, to take on. So allow your unconscious mind to think about how good it feels to take that first step, to know that you have been led to water, and to know that the first step is to actually just pick up the cup, scoop it in the water, and drink it down. That's 3 steps, right? It doesn't matter. Your brain can think of those all as one easy, swift motion. And your brain can think about, as it pictures you doing whatever that activity is, that action, that activity begins to be more and more effortless for you. The idea is that your unconscious mind right now can imagine you doing that thing over and over and over again. It can become so simple and so effortless in your head to do that thing, to imagine that thing, to even if you cannot see it, when I say the word imagine and your brain's like, nope, I don't have that visual going on in my head, you can find yourself thinking about what those steps are, and your unconscious mind can know that you can write them out. You can say them out. You can discover what those steps ought to be, and your brain goes, okay, we're just going to think about what those things are, and we're just going to make them happen. And your brain can realize that there might be a lot of steps. But when you find yourself thinking about that on the conscious level, maybe it gets to be too much. Like maybe the idea that you're going to pick up the cup and scoop it in the water and drink it, that's a lot of steps. Maybe that's too many for you. It's okay. Let your unconscious mind go, oh, you know what? That's really not a big deal for us, because on the unconscious level, these are things that we just automatically do. And the conscious self doesn't have to think about it. The conscious self just has this, I'm thirsty desire. I need to do something about it. And so let yourself think about what the desire is that you actually have. Whether that desire is to not do something and to do something else instead. I'm going to not do that side quest. I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to do my laundry today because I I like eating off of clean, I like wearing clean clothes. I'm going to do my dishes because I like eating off of clean dishes. Whatever it is that your brain can imagine, your conscious self can imagine the end result, your unconscious self can set the plan in motion, can do all these little things that make it feel so good. And you can find yourself feeling that pull to make these things happen, that push, that magnetic drive and desire to make these things happen. Let's speak about the desire that I have mentioned a couple times, because there are things inside you that are driven to want certain things. And I don't care what those things are for you. It doesn't matter what they are for you, but you have that. There is some part of you in some way that has a drive, a desire to do certain things. It doesn't matter what those are. Let your unconscious mind think about what those are, and then apply those as strongly as it possibly can to this new task at hand, whatever that new task is. And allow your unconscious mind to think about how good it feels that it can do this. Allow your unconscious mind to think about how exciting it is to be able to do this. Allow your unconscious mind to think about the fun in making this happen. Now, sometimes when I give somebody a task like this, I tell them that they can stay deeply in trance while they make this happen, or that they can be wide awake, they can think about this thing that they need to do, they can go deeply into trance. Their unconscious mind can just be like, oh, for the love of Pete, it is so much easier for me to just do this task. And then when we come out of our state of trance, our altered state, the task will be done and our conscious self can feel accomplished. Our conscious self can feel how cool it is that we have made this thing happen. We, as a collective unit, conscious and unconscious all together, have made this thing happen, and isn't that great? And you can certainly let that happen. If that is going to be the way that you think you're going to make this happen, allow your unconscious mind right now to think about that task. Allow your unconscious mind to think about the best time to make that task happen. Plan out how much time you're going to need. Do you need to be alone, or do you need somebody else to do it with you? Plan it all out. And allow your unconscious mind to think about everything you need to make this happen in the most ethical, practical way possible. And as your brain thinks about the way you can make this happen, you can find a time to do it. You can say, okay, now's a great time for me to go into trance to make this thing happen. And then for me to wake up when it's done, come out of trance, and then to realize on that conscious level, oh, I have done this thing. The moment, if you do that, the moment you realize on a conscious level that you have done this thing, notice that it feels fucking incredible to have done it. Your brain knows the way that you can find yourself rewarding your body and your brain. So let your unconscious mind think about that right now. Think about the perfect way to reward yourself for having gotten a thing done, because you were compelled to go to that water, but then you drank it. And you drank it because you found yourself being forced to. You found yourself being compelled to do it. And then you found that you really liked it. And the fact that you found yourself being rewarded for doing this thing, that it felt really good to do this thing that you wanted to do, even if part of you was like, well, I don't really want to do it, because we all know that you did, allow your unconscious mind to think about how wonderful it feels to have been compelled to do a thing that deep down inside you really wanted to do. We can talk later about doing things that you think you didn't want to do, because that's also possible. But still, allow your unconscious mind to think about how good it feels to have done this thing. Allow your unconscious mind to delight in how fascinating it is for you to realize, oh my God, I did this thing. And then for your brain to go, we can apply this to anything else that we want to make happen. We can apply this to any other task that we have been putting off. We can apply this to any other thing that we must do. We can apply this to anything else that we have been frightened of or afraid of. We can allow our unconscious mind to think through all the parameters that we are aware of at this point in time to allow us to get to do this thing in the most powerful, strong way possible, so that we do this thing to the very best of our collective ability, and that we feel really, really great in all of our senses while we're doing it. And then we give ourselves some reward when we're finished so that we feel so good about what we've done that we find ourselves wanting to do either that or the same thing again. So if you find yourself saying, I need to eat more healthfully, I didn't really like vegetables, but now I find myself needing to like vegetables. How can I be drawn to liking vegetables? You can find yourself really intrigued by, say, the color or the texture or the smell of a vegetable. You can find new ways to cook them. I recommend roasting everything, especially broccoli, if that's a you thing. Just allow your brain to think about the ways that you can find yourself changing the things that you don't like about something so that it begins to appeal to you more and more strongly. Allow your brain to play around with things so that you can make this happen over and over and over again. Allow your unconscious mind to think about the ways in which you can ease into a thing so that you don't overwhelm yourself with a bad experience, because you want to find yourself, especially if you're trying to build a habit, you want to find yourself doing this thing, being compelled to do it, and then it feels good. Maybe it hurts a little bit. Like sometimes if you start, say, weightlifting, your muscles are going to be sore the next day or two, right? That's okay, that's normal. You just don't want to go out and pretend you're, say, some bodybuilder and try to do what they do. You want to do what's best for you. So allow yourself to know that you can build up to a thing. But the important thing is that you find yourself noticing that I'm not leading you to the water. You are leading yourself there. You are being drawn there. You are being compelled there because you are thirsty. You want this thing so strongly. You need this thing, in fact, so strongly. And your unconscious mind is simply going to figure out for you the easiest way for you, without thinking about it, to pick up that cup, scoop it in the water, and drink it down. And the more you find yourself taking each and every one of the things that you find yourself wanting and needing to be compelled to do in that same fashion, the easier they all become for you. The more fun and exciting they all become for you. The more thrilling each and every one of those things is for you. And the more you find yourself compelled to do the things perhaps that you really have to do, that you have not wanted to do, the more you can realize that your life begins to feel a little bit more like you're in charge of it. Because you're doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing. You just never got around to doing them before now. And isn't it weird? If you're thirsty, you don't really want anybody else to tell you to drink, right? You just want to be able to have your unconscious mind say, oh, well, let's just do the right thing for ourselves. Let's just allow our brain to make that right decision for us. Let's just allow our unconscious to know that that action can be taken and that every single part of us will benefit from having that taken. And it feels really good. And we don't have to be stubborn about it, because being desirous of that thing happening can feel really good for us internally, externally, for all of our senses. Allow each and every one of your senses to think about what it would mean for you to be satisfied and happy with that experience, and then to allow your unconscious mind to just allow that to make that happen. Allow your brain to think about how good it feels to work together communally as a whole unit for yourself, and think about how fun that can be for you to go, oh, I have done this thing. Cool. I could do it again. Or if this is done, because sometimes you just have to do a thing once, right? You can move on to something else. You can find yourself going on to something else in a very healthy way for you. You can allow your unconscious mind to feel what that's like, to know that you can find yourself compelled to do a thing, and then once you've done it, you either can turn it into a healthy habit, or you can find yourself going, okay, cool, this thing is done. I feel accomplished. I've made it happen. No matter how you find yourself doing it, allow your brain to do it in a way that feels right for you, that allows you to know that you can be drawn to doing a thing that you need to make happen, that you've really wanted to make happen, that you've been putting off making happen, that doing would be good for you in whatever way that means. And allow your unconscious mind to simply delight in how good it feels to help facilitate by doing those unconscious things that on a conscious level you might be thinking about too much. You don't have to think about them too much anymore, because your unconscious self can just make them happen, and then your conscious self can just go, oh, hey, I've already done this thing. And then your conscious self can calm down. Your conscious self can feel that reward and go, hey, this feels really great. I just did this thing. You can take a moment. And then you can realize how wonderful it is that your brain is so impressive, that your unconscious mind is so very good for you and to you. And you can say thank you if you want. I like to say thank you to my brain and to a lot of your brains too. Your brains are phenomenal and important and great. So hold on to that thought. So let your whole self take that message on, that it feels really good to feel yourself compelled to do whatever that thing is that you thought about at the beginning. To find yourself doing that feels even better. That you can let me know if you'd like later on in the week or whenever you get it done that you've made that thing happen and that you felt really good about it. If you find yourself coming back and listening in again because you're setting up something for a habit, or if you're setting up something bigger than the thing it was that you initially thought about, wonderful. Your brain is phenomenal. Hold on to how good it can be for you. And on the count of 10, find yourself coming up all the way wide awake, feeling amazing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Take a nice deep breath in. Move your body around. Let it out. Open up your eyes. Keep stretching. And 10, wide awake. Come on back and say hi. I'm going to drink some water. And I hope you all feel really good. And I hope your brains show you what they're capable of doing. Also, it's very warm in here. I only have 3 ice packs with me today, and I've already gone through 2. Thank you, Peter. Hello, Lycan. That sometimes happens, Deidre. Sometimes people go really deeply in trance. I didn't even show a single shiny thing today. I normally do. I still have all my shiny things here. Next time I'll bring out the shiny things again. But do please let me know what you felt, not what you felt compelled to do, because that can be really private. But if you did the thing that you were compelled to do, I would like to know that. You know, I try to pick something relatively innocuous if I pick an example, but it doesn't always work that way. But hey, if any of you were dehydrated, maybe you did need to drink some water. I will say that I'm drinking my water now, as opposed to throughout the whole thing. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. I always delight in chatting with people and in doing hypnosis group sessions. I will be back next Sunday. And I'm trying to do like a poll. I'm working on a list of topics for doing these. I'm not really a storyteller per se, but I'm happy to take ideas and bring them together. So, well, I might have a poll that comes on. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. I'll be back next Sunday, as far as I know. And if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to write them and I will get back to you. I do always appreciate it. Ooh, I love getting rid of migraines. I love it when I get rid of mine, and I'm glad yours went away. So good job, brain. I would appreciate if you would like this video. If you are not subscribed, if you would subscribe, that would be great. And yeah, thank you for being here. And I will see you again, hopefully, next Sunday. Bye, everyone.